Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House, in terms of Rule 2733, give permission that the legislative proposal be proceeded with. I thank you.
Honourable members, the motion is that permission be given for the Committee, Trade and Industry to proceed with the legislative. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. Yeah. Honourable Williams, please proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Our country is an over-indebted one, and we as the ANC-led government need to act so that the poor will get some limited debt relief. It is very important that we look at this holistically and not just in a matter whereby we just allow people to write off a limited amount of debt so that then they can get back into debt. The committee is planning to use this legislation so that we can promote savings in our country and that we can also disincentivize reckless lending by dodgy financial service providers. We as a country cannot continue down this road where we just borrow money to pay off debt, and this has led us to the situation that we are now facing. So the Committee on Trade and Industry requests that this Parliament allow us to proceed with this legislation so that we as a collective can bring much needed relief to our poor people. I thank you.
Honourable Chief Whip, we would like you now to indicate the same reason you gave earlier on, because it is now that the committee can proceed. Proceed. Chief Whip.
Chair, well, we don't know at times whether it's the egg or the chicken, but or both. Be that as it may, I move, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that the House, in terms of Rule 2733, give permission that the legislative proposals that are now before the
on a point of order, Deputy Speaker. Okay.
Yes. Finish that. Finish that.
That the legislative proposals be proceeded with,
Okay.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Honourable member, what's the order?
No, Deputy Speaker, I thought that earlier on you asked the Chief Whip to say the same thing.
No, this is why, Honourable member, I went back to him to say that this is where it should be happening, not earlier on. I take responsibility for that. So I guess,
okay.
Can I confirm that there is no objection to that?
Oh.
To the committee proceeding with what has just been introduced. There is no objection, honourable members. Honourable Singh?
Chairperson, no objection, but we'd like opportunity for declaration.
Okay. Honourable member, you still want to say something?
No, Deputy Speaker, I wanted to say hereafter, after he has proposed, we then make declarations. Thank you very much.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you very much. Honourable members, the following allocations will apply today as agreed to by in the Chief Whip's Forum and elsewhere. That the ANC will have 7 minutes, the DA will have 5 minutes, the EFF will have 4 minutes, and all other parties 3 minutes. Who would like to start? Go ahead, honourable member from the DA.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. This discussion has some parallels to the discussion we had in this House on land reform 2 days ago. This is so because the National Credit Act, in its current form, provides the government with awesome power to protect consumers from unscrupulous and predatory lenders. It also gives the government the power to give immediate relief to South African families who find themselves trapped in debt. The trouble is, Deputy Speaker, that this power is currently seldom used, hence the parallel. Few of us can imagine the stress and anxiety that so many millions of South Africans live with every day because they have become entrapped in a debt prison and can see no way out. Every month they go to work just to make the minimum payments on their loans to keep the loan sharks away, so that they can be allowed to lend more to eat and live. A very significant portion of these loans to these South Africans are defined as reckless credit under the existing Act and can be fairly easily written off in their entirety. Before we discuss any amendment to the current Act, we need to use the powers available to us in the current Act to their full potential. If there are truly bona fide amendments to the Act that can strengthen it even further, then the Democratic Alliance is of course happy to consider those and will participate fully in the process. However, we must also ask ourselves, why did it take 18 months of pleading by the DA before the regulator agreed to conduct a full audit of the nearly 2 million African bank customers' loans to check for reckless credit? Had this been agreed to when we first asked for it, millions of South Africans could potentially already be free of billions of rands in reckless credit granted to them by the former African Bank. This could have been the real, tangible, and immediate debt relief. And while we are pleased that a full audit is now finally underway, we say doing so does not require any amendment to the Act. Not a single thing needs to be changed in order to do this. All of the power lies there for you to use. Why has no similar audit been agreed to for all of the victims of the so-called Satinsky 699 scam? There are another 25,000 South Africans who could get debt relief right now. Why did it take so long, more than a year in fact, to issue new rules for credit insurance, when in the meantime companies were still selling disability insurance to people who already have disabilities, or loss of income insurance to people who are unemployed? Why is it that the private industry, civil society, and wealthy philanthropists have to be relied upon to take the initiative to take all of these dodgy, garnishy orders and unscrupulous lenders to court, when the Act gives you, the government, all the powers to do that proactively if you wanted to? All of this power and more is there for you in the current Act. And yet, we are now told that more amendments are necessary. It is another example of government scapegoating existing legislation to explain a failure to act. If this government was serious about debt relief, it would use the incredible powers it already has to deliver debt relief now. And we will be making proposals for this amendment bill to achieve exactly that. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member, EFF.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The report we are discussing today shows at the end of June 2016, a total of 24.8 million consumers were credit active in South Africa. Of these, 14.41 million consumers were in good standing, while 9.67 million had impaired records. This points out to the very big gap in the legislative framework that governs lending and the more the necessary leniency by the state creditors. This indicates that the National Credit Act is not doing as well as it should in the constraining imprudent credit provision which leads consumer to indebtedness. We therefore support the proposal by the PC on Trade and Industry, and we will seek to influence the bill to ensure that, amongst other things, it relieves consumers of their debt distress. Without this universal clearance of people's debt, lifting them off the credit bureau listings, our economy will not be able to grow, and our people will remain forever indebted. We therefore support this report. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, through legislative applications, the NCA is trying to ensure the best possible scenario for consumers. And this is to be commended, but the fact of the matter is that cash loans are still far too easily available, even while South Africa is consumed by a credit crunch. This is confirmed by the Reserve Bank data, which gives an indication of the crisis. From 1994 to 2010, South Africa's exposure to credit in the private domestic sector increased from 230 billion rand to close to 2.1 trillion, with the value of credit granted to consumers increasing by 10.22 billion for the quarter September to December 2012. One of the most serious problems still seems to be that the total cost of credit is not fully being disclosed, even though this was one of the clear intentions of the NCA, the reason for this being that the credit life is not being capped. To plug this irresponsible behavior, the Minister of Trade and Industry published the National Credit Act Policy Review Framework a while back, and also the amendment bill, which is meant to tackle reckless lending with a raft of mechanisms that includes proposals for enhanced consumer education and literacy, and proposing standard assessing credit affordability. Debt counselling as a debt relief remedy is not ideal for everyone, and if an individual doesn't have an income, they fall into a grey area between sequestration and debt counselling, and currently there's no remedy for this, and this must be addressed. Positively, credit providers are now required to calculate discretionary income as well as all existing debts and maintenance obligations in order to make a call on whether the consumer can afford a loan. South Africa, unfortunately, has its back against the wall when it comes to consumer credit. Maybe this draft bill doesn't go nearly far enough to change the situation, which is technically out of control, but without it, South Africa would also be poorer off. This has been a long time coming and has taken far too long. The IP will support this proposal.
Honourable Member, NFP.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, honourable members, the National Freedom Party welcomes the report of the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry tabled here today. Unfortunately, the 2014 amendments to the National Credit Act resulted in a number of new and continuing challenges, and these are addressed in the amendments proposed here today. Chairperson or Deputy Speaker, a person in debt is a person in chains. It is well established that South Africans are increasingly becoming more heavily indebted, and it is crippling households across the country. Statistics show that South African consumers owe the bulk of their monthly salaries and up to 75% to creditors, whilst almost 60% of the population is struggling to meet the monthly obligations to pay home loans and credit cards. Most alarming is that more than 11 million of South Africans' credit-active consumers are described as over-indebted. The issue of over-indebtedness is a great cause of concern because there are regulations in place to prevent credit providers from engaging in reckless lending, which could result in over-indebtedness. We have to question why we have any over-indebtedness despite regulations in place, and why we have 40% of the credit-active consumers in South Africa with impaired credit records. The National Freedom Party agrees with the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry that over-indebtedness must be addressed with great urgency, and that a targeted intervention must not be delayed. In fact, we believe that it should be accelerated. In particular, we're in full support of capped debt relief to promote fundamental changes in the borrowing and spending habits of indebted consumers. There is, however, a possible negative consequence of tightened legislation. With strict enforcement of the national credit legislative provisions, there is a real chance that accredited credit providers will get far more selective about whom they lend money to, and this could drive more people towards loan sharks and other unaccredited money lenders. The problem is that very often these fringe players don't adhere to the National Credit Act and the debt counselling rule system. And the National Freedom Party would welcome any intervention that would assist the National Credit Regulator to police the segment of the credit market. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, the National Freedom Party is in favor of further amendments to existing legislation which aims to reduce our national level of consumer over-indebtedness and increase the degree of compliance by all players in the credit provision sector. I thank you.
Honourable Member, UDM.
Deputy Speaker, siyabulela siyavuya ukubona unqabile. United Democratic Movement iyazixhasa ezi amendments. I mean, akho nto yodlula into yoba siprovide i-relief to abantu boMzantsi Africa due to a reckless nature in which banks and other lenders lend to our people. Ndifuna nje ubuza umzekelo omncinci kule nto uba kungekho, they've been doing this thing with impunity. You have your credit life, which is mentioned here. A client, for instance, ivele ithengiselwe i-credit life ingakhange ixelelwe. The person becomes, uyarentrenchwa, the very same bank ayimxeleli iyamharass ukuthi makabhatale. In instances where people, for instance, babhatala u-credit life bamclaim, even though it's for a 6-month period, they start harassing clients for second month to say you must pay. And yet your insurance has already paid for low mali. Harass ukuthi you must pay back, and in those instances, what they do, they pay it in advance, say for that 6-month period. But the very same client then will be told that your account is in arrears. How so, for an example? The other part I would never understand. It makes perfect sense, for an example, when you're applying for a personal loan, you go there and there's a huge admin fee, which is unnecessary in my view as an ex-banker. But why must you pay for an admin fee on a monthly basis? What administration do they do? Because then what the system does is that it would never manage the accounts that are okay. It would only generate an exception report when your account is in arrears. That's when you should be paying for an admin fee. So the rest of it, they are turning it into like it's a transaction account that over and above the fees that they charge you, the interest exorbitant, they must also charge you a host of other fees. It's absolute nonsense. You see, the banking industry as a whole, we need to review its structure fees as well in its entirety. Because look, as a client, for instance, you go to all these financial institutions, especially the major ones. 4 returned items will charge you 400 rands a month. Right? If you earn 3,000 rands a month, how much are you left? And they charge you because of those returns items without considering the economic situation. The very same financial institutions, what they do. I'm an ex-banker, I know this. No, we must wine and dine you. We must put under pressure their own consultants and bankers to charge you extra so that they can finance the wining and dining that they do with So, and they give them targets to do these things. So I'm saying we need to review structures of banks. I also don't understand, for instance, as a side issue, while I understand the political dynamics around the appointment Brian Mulife here, Honorable Mulife as an MP, I would never understand why it would make more headlines than the manipulation of the currency in South Africa. All of a sudden, the manipulation of currency, a footnote of the news. If we steal 50 rands, it's a problem. If they steal billions, it's not headline
Your
news.
term has expired, sir. Honorable member, before you start, take your seat there. Take your seat. Members, let's welcome boys from Rondebosch Boys High School up there in the gallery. Welcome, boys, and your staff, if it's there. Go ahead, honorable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, the ACDP just trusts that the boys from Rondebosch will listen carefully about how to avoid getting into too much debt. And this is what we're faced with in South Africa, a society that is over-indebted. And Deputy Speaker, maybe our schools need to have more teaching about credit and debt and how to avoid those debt traps and to only, as far as possible, to pay cash. But we from our side will be supporting this report in principle. Many people have said that the National Credit Act, when it was first passed, went a long way to help us withstand the credit crisis, the banking crisis in 2019. We had the 2014 amendment, which
this. And it is
Honourable Member, AIC.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The AIC commends the proposed revision of the National Credit Act of 2005. What is symbolic about the proposal is the attempt to cap the current interest rates accruing to all manner of loans. The proposed sector loan interest will affirm the National Credit Act's objective to prevent reckless credit lending. Our fear, however, is that a large chunk of homeless people applying for mortgage and joint bonds will be on the receiving end of the stick. Credit providers now likely to have a shrinking share on unpaid loan mortgage are likely to place extra cautionary measures to screen mortgage applicants. The plight of the poor will be worsened, lest the current status quo where the ANC land programs have not helped the situation. In terms of Section 15 of the National Credit Act, the National Credit Regulator is enjoined to monitoring the consumer credit market and industry to ensure that prohibited conduct is prevented or detected and prosecuted. The proposed amendment seeks to make it mandatory to all credit providers defined in the Act to be registered with the regulator. The AIC welcomes this contribution in the credit sector for all what it is worth. We are sure to have a credit industry that will serve the interest of consumers who are often on the sidelines of access to credit market and discriminatory credit practice. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Forbes.
Good afternoon, Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable members of this House and our guests. And I'm sure it has been of interest to Honourable members that there has not been one dissenting voice. I think that that is a great achievement in this House. The reason why there is no dissenting voice is not because of love, but because of what the World Economic Forum referred to recently is the increasing inequality in the world, not only in our country, but in the world globally. It is growing to such an extent, it makes the dark ages look bright. Now, why have we got
Honourable members, let's listen to Honourable Forbes.
Yes, I would appreciate it if you would listen to the next few words. And that is this. You see, when we look at this, I must first, before I forget, thank the Honourable Adrian Williams for chairing the subcommittee, and those like yourself, Honourable Hill Lewis, who were represented there, and from time to time, other committee members. You have done a fine job. Thank you very much. Now, when it first came about, you will recall we spoke about debt forgiveness. There was a hue and a cry. What do you mean you're going to forgive them? They'll start all over again. That's what the ANC does. Forgive and forget, like we've got running a confessional. We are not. We are not. What we are doing is we are recognizing reality. That's what we are doing, because as you know, Honourable Chief Buthelezi, throughout our country today, we have financial institutions acting with impunity and disregarding legislation. Yes, we do have legislation, the National Credit Act. We do. That's what saved South Africa. It saved us from the global financial crisis created by the greatest capitalists of this world, the Americans. Now, what we are saying is this, honourable members, is that this debt, how did it become a reality? It is true, South Africans in general have a culture of credit, in general. However, let us also acknowledge that financial institutions in South Africa have become a protected species in our business. So they acted with impunity. There is legislation that makes reckless lending a criminal offense. Yes. So why aren't they behind bars? Why not? I'll tell you why. There are too many vested interests. So what we are appealing for is that every member of this House does what it is doing now. It puts the people first. It puts the people first. And it acknowledges that the majority of South Africans don't have assets. We have yet to fully resolve issues like the land question, and we don't have sufficient generosity, sufficient honesty in the financial sector to acknowledge publicly, not privately one-to-one. You know what? We ignored the legislation. What they are doing now is saying, but you know, Chair, can't you sort of try and understand? No, I can't. I cannot understand why any financial institution would rob the poor. No. And that is what's happened. Secondly, credit is not only acquired by cash, it is also acquired by purchase of assets, like furniture, a stove, a fridge, and also burying one's loved ones. And what happens then? You are persuaded to take out insurance, but when you are in this dreadful state, you forget you paid insurance. And just let me tell you, they don't bother to remind you. But when the insurance has lapsed, then you get a visit from the sheriff, who actually takes back the goods. Now, what do we do about it? Up to now, we have not been able to do much. But I am pleased to learn and to hear in the House today that there is not one party that disagrees with the reality that it is time we did something realistic to address the debt situation, but not to let people off and allow them to get into further debt, but rather to develop instruments through legislation and adopt measures which will respect the culture of savings, but also prevent reckless lending. The ANC fully supports this bill. Thank you.
Honourable members, I have to put the question again that the permission be given to the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry to proceed with the legislative proposals. I assume there's no objection, as it was stated. No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on oversight visit to Capricorn and Vembe education districts in Limpopo province.
Honorable Member, please go ahead. I see that I was given the name of the chairperson and changes were not indicated to us. Please do that next time. Indicate changes to names of people. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The committee undertook an oversight visit to Capricorn and Vembe Education District in Limpopo Province. The purpose of the visit or the oversight was to assess the state of schooling and examination readiness for 2016 school year in Limpopo Province. The Education District of Capricorn and Vembe, the Portfolio Committee also sought to oversee the implementation of key priority areas in respect of the improvement of the quality of basic education. There was an additional need to provide support to the Limpopo Provincial Education Department. The two identified districts in finding effective ways to solve the challenges the district faced. The Portfolio Committee focused on, among other things, the following crucial areas: to assess the state of readiness of the National Senior Certificate, NSC examination, the other assessments in the identified district and Limpopo in general, interventions made in preparations for the NSC examinations or other assessments, support for progress learners, teacher development programs, the state of security systems for the printing, distribution, and storage of examination question papers, the procedures in place to conduct the examination and the training of invigilators, to assess the state of schooling in the province in terms of the following key priorities: the provision of the learner-teacher support material, staff establishment, that is post-provisioning norms, the district support, availability of learner transport and school nutrition programs for qualifying learners, the functionality of school governing bodies and school management teams, the state of schools' infrastructure and availability of school furniture, and inclusive education, to monitor the utilization of ICT in schools and in the area, to assess the implementation of social cohesion programs, and to give the necessary support and advice in dealing with the challenges. The Portfolio Committee selected the Limpopo province based on the challenges that emerged in some of the regions in the province. The Vuane area of the Vembe district experienced a wave of protests which set back teaching and learning between 3 May and 10 of August 2016. The committee found the following and observed that the examination readiness, in terms of examination readiness, the Portfolio Committee was satisfied despite some challenges noted. The province was ready to administer the 2016 National Senior Certificate examination. The Portfolio Committee further noted the range of intervention programs designed to prepare learners for the NSC examination and other assessment, including the catch-up programs in grade R to 11 and grade 12 learners in the Vuane area of the Vembe district. We also wanted to look at the progress made in terms of the inclusive education provisioning. So we're satisfied with the incremental procurement of assistive devices and large print. We're also satisfied with regard to the overall state of schooling in the province. The committee noted some improvements since the previous oversight in 2015, as well as stronger will and sense of purpose from the province in addressing its challenges. The committee also visited one of the well-functioning teacher centers in the country, Mastek, as well as some resilient schools in the Vembe Education District, such as Mbili Secondary School. Despite large classrooms, Mbili has consistently produced excellent results in grade 12 for over a decade, particularly in critical areas of mathematics and physical science. However, there were challenges that were there. The committee also observed several areas requiring attention in the province, as highlighted in the report. These included infrastructure backlogs, improving communication with stakeholders,
Honorable Member,
the filling of vacancies.
I'm afraid your time has expired.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Member.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, the purpose of the oversight visit to Limpopo in September 2016 was to inter alia assess the state of the National Senior Certificate Examination readiness for 2017. This included assessing the state of security systems for printing, distribution and storage of examination question papers, as well as the procedures in place to conduct these examinations, especially in the areas where schools had been ravaged in the wake of the widespread protests that took place earlier in the year. Further visits were conducted to full-service schools, which left me gobsmacked, to say the least. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the question one must ask is, what is the purpose of our oversight visits? As Portfolio Committee members, we must investigate the on-ground situation, ensure that our findings are discussed with the relevant officials, and that time limits are set for implementation so that all provincial departments are held to account. But it is abundantly clear that these oversights are not taken seriously by the DBE or the other provinces. Deputy Speaker, if one looks at the oversight conducted to schools in the province that were burnt and damaged last year, not once have I seen a report on the findings from the Limpopo Education Department. I am absolutely certain that if I were to return to these schools, little to nothing has changed. The Provincial Education Department must be made to provide this House with regular reports on their progress. At best, the department is incapable of delivering their mandate. At worst, they are complicit in sending more children away after schooling without sound education and contributing to our ever-growing lost generation. Deputy Speaker, there are educators out there who are passionate about their work and want to see that learners are provided with the education they deserve. In one instance, the principal of Quara High School refused to go home and patiently waited in the dark for 2 hours so that he could share his experiences with us. This to try and improve the situation of his learners. Honourable members, this is what I call dedication. His dedication should be nurtured, as it will help his students and teachers to reach the goals that have been set. We were informed that books were burnt, and computers, science kits, school records, furniture, and the staff room, previously built by the parents, were not spared. Opening in August after the local government elections, he was still awaiting teacher learner guides. Totally unacceptable. The only items provided to him were 2 mobile classrooms, for which he expressed his heartfelt appreciation. Agbare adjunct speaker, 'n saak na in my hart is leerders met gestremdhede. In Limpopo is dit duidelik dat hierdie leerders en leerkragte aan hulle eie lot oorgelaat is. Die vorige speaker van die ANC het gesê hulle is tevrede met wat aangaan in onderwys vir leerders met gestremdhede. Ek wil graag verskil met hom. Ravoni skool is 'n skool vir blindes. Hulle het nie eers die dienste van braille opvoeders nie. Hoe op dese aarde gaan hierdie leerders wat glad nie kognitiewe probleme het nie, 'n ordentlike opvoeding ontvang en hulle matriek slaag? Settle Tolwani, another school that caters for the blind, does not even have top-up braille books. Honourable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, this leaves me speechless. It would appear as if learners with disabilities are being unfairly treated, and the sooner we address this issue, the sooner we will reap the benefits. Education is the bedrock of our society, and as Madiba said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. If we do not address these challenges head on, there is no way that the goals set will be realized, and the lost generation will simply grow larger and larger. I thank you.
Honourable Member.
The EFF went to this oversight visit and we were able to confirm what we have long believed in is indeed true. The country has no basic education system. We continue endangering the future of our children and of our country if we do not fix loopholes in our basic education system as fast and as radical as possible. The aim of the visit was to assess the state of schooling and examination readiness for the 2016 school year in the province and the identified districts. What we found during this visit was nothing new. We have consistently spoken in this House about lack of coordination between the national department and the provincial departments of education. We have consistently spoken about the lack of coordination between the provincial department and district offices of the department, leading to massive corruption at a district level. There were 897 schools that only had pit latrines that needed to be addressed in terms of norms and standards for school infrastructure. Of the 897 schools, the department needed to build 16,811 toilets to provide sufficient sanitation. In the visited district, 45 schools were without adequate water. 16 schools did not have electricity. There was a need for 6,843 ordinary classrooms and 4,913 grade R classrooms in that province. The question is, what do we do after tabling this report? We just move on if nothing has happened. We move on in the comfort of the luxuries that public money affords us as members of parliament, and we do nothing. We therefore cannot accept this report because we know it will get a dust that like many others before it, and nothing will be done. Thank you.
Honourable Msimang.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, members of the Portfolio Committee, were disappointed with the findings in the Vembe district, especially in Buwani. This is the area that had been engulfed by the violent protest action, which saw about 29 public schools razed by arson. What is deplorable is that the protest had nothing to do with schooling, but schools were identified as soft targets by communities who were defying the rulings of the Demarcation Board, which sought to disestablish or amalgamate certain municipalities in Limpopo. This brought schooling and learning to a standstill, affecting thousands of learners, especially those that were doing grade 12. The infrastructure damage to the schools in Buani was estimated at 348 million rand. Before the PC proceeded to Limpopo in September 2016, it had been informed that the situation was back to normal. Yet when we arrived at the scene, the situation was exactly the opposite. In one of the visited schools, the principal informed the committee that the chairs he had provided for us were the only chairs left in the school. He was at a loss as to where his grade 12 learners will sit when writing exams. The school library and computer room had been gutted, with all the books and computers in such rooms destroyed. He complained bitterly that the provincial department had not replaced the teaching and learning materials in spite of repeated requests. In a number of other schools, we met with the same lack of furniture and learning materials. I must confess that I was pleasantly surprised on seeing the matric results from Buani because they were so good as to be beyond expectations. A number of schools in Limpopo complained about the high bills of electricity rates that are charged by their municipalities. We plead with COCTA to look into this matter because schools simply do not have resources to settle such exorbitant accounts. There is also an outcry about many teenage pregnancies in our schools. The teachers alone cannot resolve this problem. Both communities and governments should find a solution.
It's expired.
The problem is not limited to Limpopo, but is becoming a national disaster.
Honorable Kubiza, please
I
take your
thank
seat.
you.
Honorable Member, please go ahead.
Deputy Speaker, thank you. Education is the bedrock on which a society builds its hope for the future. It is an investment in future growth and progress, and it is the gateway through which we might yet achieve a real freedom for our people when we have an educated nation that can take its place among the nations with pride. However, we still have a very long way to go in achieving our goal of quality-free education for all. The oversight visit to Capricorn and Vemba district in Limpopo gave the PC Portfolio Committee an insight, once again, of how deep the structural inequalities in our national basic education remain 22 years after we have attained our freedom. The pressing backlog in infrastructure development reminded the Portfolio Committee once again that the average black child in South Africa is still denied complete fulfillment of their right to quality and free basic education. Because without the basics such as running water, dignified toilets, and electricity, it is difficult to create a learning environment in which the talent of our children can blossom and grow to their full potential. 70% of the learners in grades 8, 9, and lower grades in the province of Limpopo had not received stationery several days after the schools had officially opened. Vacancies remained unfilled, and there is still little evidence of support for teacher development or the rolling of inclusive education. All of these obstacles are well within the jurisdiction and the mandate of the Provincial Department of Basic Education to resolve. And the sooner that can happen, the better it will be for the children of Limpopo. However, Honorable Deputy Speaker, the problems faced in Limpopo must not be viewed in isolation. The problem the Portfolio Committee encountered there are mirrored in virtually every province in South Africa, some more so than others. What we have to accept is that not enough has been done to address the social inequalities which have been inherited from an unjust past. Our children, and in particular our black children in rural areas, continue to suffer these inequalities. We have to speed up all intervention programs which will result in rapid infrastructure development and make every effort to raise the level of competence of our educators. If these issues, two issues, can be addressed, together with the visible commitment from the government to attend to the obstacles of our children, that our children are faced with, then South Africa may well come closer to achieving its goal of quality-free education for all our children in our lifetime. Deputy Speaker, this is what we are tabling as the consent and must be attended to. Thank you very much. The report is welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Member ANC. I was told there's someone declaring there.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC supports this report that has been tabled. And it also appraised the progressive work done by this province to change the lives of our poor communities since our visit there. We had numerous findings, recommendations that we did. For example, that the Limpopo department should fast-track the realization of small and non-viable schools, including ensuring that there is sufficient infrastructure provisioning of scholar transport, as well as nutrition. We also had another recommendation which says that there should be fast-tracking of the filling of vacant posts, which includes the promotion of posts as a matter of agency. Yes, I've heard from Honorable Boshoff saying that the department does not take findings of the committee seriously. Let me say to you that after our visit, the department did deliver the LTSM to the schools as requested, and also on the languages the schools requested. These include schools like Sitotolwane on Braille workshop. Kulabantwana labatsinga ama-assistive devices. Sakhuluma sathi tikolo leti atinikwe lama assistive devices, and indeed the province did them in our recommendation. EFF angathi ukuthi ikhuluma ngani ngoba phela beyingekho lapha ya. Azange siyibona, they are just dreaming about the school readiness in the
Deputy Speaker,
we
on
did
a point of order.
Provide.
Deputy Speaker,
Honorable Member,
on a point of
take your
order.
seat. Yes, what are you raising, Honorable Member?
No, this member must stop misleading the House. I was there.
Honorable Member.
I was present there during the oversight. No, he must withdraw. Otherwise, he's not going to talk here. I was there during the oversight.
All right.
No, he
Take your
cannot
seat,
talk.
Honorable
No,
Member.
he must stop talking lies.
Honorable Member.
I was there, man.
Take your seat.
Aye. He must
Take your seat.
withdraw.
Take your seat, Honorable Member. Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you very
He
much.
must withdraw
The province
first.
is busy now.
He must withdraw first.
No. Honorable
No,
Member.
I was there.
Honorable Member,
No.
you have said that. Take your seat.
Yes,
The House
he must
knows you were there. Take
Then
your seat.
you'll rule on
Take
that.
your seat, Honorable
You'll
Member.
rule on that.
Go ahead, Honorable Member.
The province is now busy
This
with
man
the
must
provision
withdraw
of water
first.
and sanitation projects.
No, he must
Which
withdraw.
amount to 12.
Honorable.
I was there. I was there.
But
He must stop lying to the House.
Honorable
No,
Member, I
he
said,
must stop lying.
Honorable Member, you can't rise and speak without being recognized.
must rule
I
on
told
that.
you to take your seat.
But you
Take your
must rule on
seat.
that because I was there.
Take your seat.
No, you must stop lying, man.
Honorable Member.
Bahlonishwa bami nemphakathi wonke emakhaya. Sinenkinga
On a point of
yalabo
order, Mr.
ngqamngqeshi.
Speaker.
Lababuka lokubi kuphela.
On a point of order,
Abanqomi
Deputy Speaker.
lokuhle.
What is the point of order about? Take your seat, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker, our member have raised the point of order that her integrity is being harmed by this member because she did attend the oversight, and you must let that member withdraw or rule on the matter.
Honorable Member.
Because that is infringing on her rights.
Yeah.
And her integrity.
Honorable
That
Member.
she didn't do her constituency work or
When a
her
ruling,
oversight.
Honorable Member, you can't challenge a ruling that has been made.
Can.
No, let me
If you
explain.
are wrong,
Honorable,
I can. Who are
Honorable Member.
No, if you
Honorable
are wrong,
Member,
I can.
if you want to question
I can.
the ruling.
Who are you?
Honorable Member.
I can.
Honorable Member, take your seat.
you are not
Let me
above the
explain to
law.
you. No, take
I
your
can.
seat.
Who are
Take
you?
your seat, Honorable Member. Honorable members, if you object to a ruling that a presiding officer has made, you know the rule says what you must do. You can't debate that ruling in the House here.
Point of order. Point of order.
I have already ruled on that matter, Honorable Member. If
point
you are
of
rising on
order.
the same thing, what are you rising on?
I'm rising on a point of order, Chair.
What's your point of order, Honorable Member?
Your ruling was wrong. The man lied.
You see, you are making exactly the same mistake.
Yeah, but
I'm going to switch off your mic. Take your seat.
Off.
Take your seat, Honorable Member. Go ahead, Honorable Member, and proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, for your protection.
Orders, Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Member, I have ruled on this matter. If it is on this matter,
Order, Deputy Speaker.
that's not going to be allowed, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker,
Honorable
why are you
Sope,
anti-
I'm talking to you. Honorable Members, I'm talking to a member. Don't interrupt me with your points of orders whilst I'm talking. I will not accept that. Honorable Member, what are you rising on? On which point of order?
I'm rising on point 92, Deputy Speaker.
What does it say?
It says a point of order.
What are you rising on, Honorable Member? What's the
Please
principle?
be patient.
I want to hear on
Please
what
be
rule.
patient with
If you-
members.
Honorable
Deputy
Member,
Speaker.
if
Don't
you do
take
not
this thing
indicate,
personal. This
if
is
you
not
do
your
not
house.
indicate what the issue is
Deputy
and what
Speaker.
rule you are rising on, you can sit down.
92.1. I'm rising under 92.1. Is that difficult to understand?
Honorable Member, what are you rising on?
I'm saying, Deputy Speaker, this thing of ANC sending old people here in this parliament is a problem.
Honorable
This
Member,
honorable
you are
member
out
didn't
of
even
order. I'm
see
switching
the
off your
member that was
microphone.
there. It's a
Honorable
problem.
Member, I'm
We must
switching
send
off your
young people
microphone.
here.
Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Kula bantu leni sithumelela bona la opposition abangomi lokuhle. Awuhambe ke DA uye lapha ya eGugulethu eMseni Primary School la Western Cape. Since 27 December 2016 lo thisha bothisha bakabhatalwanga ngoba nine nginga nalathole khona lapha ya. Tinhloko tentifana nemidlamithi ngoba nithandza kubuka timtono talabanye bantu nishiye tono tenu. We have made a key recommendation in the portfolio committee, which some of them I have alluded to. But let me add some which are there. That we should also, Limpopo should ensure that mentors of inclusive education continue to receive focused attention, including fast-tracking the provision of assistive devices, as I have said earlier on, of critical posts such as, and filling of critical posts such as the occupational therapy and house mothers and house fathers in needy school, as well as the effective training and development of educators. The other recommendation is that the Limpopo Education Department should provide Parliament with the report on the infrastructure needs of schools in the province and the action plan with time frames to address the backlogs in order to facilitate oversight of Parliament. The report should include incomplete projects and school furniture. The committee also requested the Provincial Education Department to check the infrastructure needs of the school as raised in the committee reports against the Province Infrastructure Assessment Report and update the portfolio committee on the way forward on this matter. May I drink my water? Cheers. We also recommended that the Limpopo Education Department should ensure that the schools experiencing shortages of textbooks and workbooks receive the necessary assistance as a matter of urgency, as well as the NSNP program shortcomings. On the issue of critical vacancies, when you look at the newspapers, bekagcwele ma-advert from the province. Inkinga yenu lapho EFF nani DA anifunzi nina bekunene. Reading is power. Go and check Rivonia School for the blinds, what we have done as ANC. Konke lokho kukhombisa i-progress from the ANC-led government. Mphakathi, Yekelani ke tonke leti ngalaba dilibele kukhuluma tibanga umsindvo lana phakathi elona. Sina ANC, we are not here to listen to what you are saying as Tingalamba. Silana stokuba umsebenzi webantfu esiveni. I therefore propose that the House accept this report. Ngiyatonga kakhulu, honorable members. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chief Whip, we've listened to the declarations, the introduction of the report and declarations. What do you wish the House to do, sir?
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move that the report be adopted by this House. I thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? There being objections, we will put the question. Those in favor will
Please
say
note the
aye.
objection of the EFF.
Those in favor of the report say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. We will note the objections of the report is therefore agreed to. Third and fourth orders. The Secretary will read the third and fourth orders.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Tourism on oversight visit to Mpumalanga Province and consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Tourism on oversight visit to Northwest Province.
Honorable Member.
Good afternoon, honorable members. The sole objective of these oversight visits which undertook as the Portfolio Committee was, among others, to assess the state of tourism in the provinces, to assess the implementation of the Tourism Social Responsibility Initiative projects, to assess the level of stakeholder participation, both in public and private sector tourism activities. Our oversight, honorable members, was geared towards assessing the achievements, of evaluating challenges and prospects for growth, particularly in rural areas, and the extent of government support at provincial and local levels. This oversight has been significant in giving the committee a clear perspective on how the Department of Tourism implements their social responsibility implementation projects and how it collaborates with provinces, municipalities on a number of strategic issues to grow the potential for tourism. I must indicate, honorable members, that the committee learned that there are provincial intergovernmental forums that have been established in an effort to ensure integration planning amongst the tourism sector that is chaired mostly by the MECs of economic developments. It was encouraging to see that the local tourism organizations have been established in some local municipalities such as Bushbuckridge and Steve Tshwete municipalities. The interventions by the Department of Tourism to pilot local tourism organizations in Bushbuckridge is commended. We need to roll out this project in many municipalities across the country to foster coordination between the private sector and government. The Middelburg Visitors Information Center in Steve Tshwete local municipality was a good model on how the Department of Tourism should implement the information centers throughout the country. This project was jointly funded by the municipality and the department. Upon completion, the information center was handed over to the private sector for operations. The center is well managed by the private sector under a close oversight and supervision by the municipality. If this model is replicated, all information centers across the length and breadth of the country, this can assist municipalities in fulfilling their constitutional mandate of promoting local tourism effectively. The committee also visited a number of social responsibility initiative projects implemented by the department. In general, the committee was concerned about the infrastructure projects. Some of the observed challenges include poor institutional arrangements, ownership and operations of these projects, the value for money poor planning for new projects, including lack of feasibility studies, environmental impact assessments, and the choice of location of the projects. The committee was, however, encouraged by the efforts that the department is correcting these challenges and has a working plan to ensure that they bring this project back to line. Before embarking on this oversight, specifically to Mpumalanga, the committee had noted a number of concerns raised by the stakeholders in the historic tourism town of Pilgrim's Rest. In the engagement with the stakeholders on the ground, the committee learned that the town does not fall under the municipality, but belongs to the Department of Public Works, which leases the buildings to tourism businesses. Most of the challenges emanated from these arrangements, and an urgent intervention is needed by the Department of Public Works to work, so that these tourism businesses can go back and work optimally. Honorable members, I submit these reports before this august House and ask for its adoption. Thank you.
Honorable members, I see members are ready for declaration. Am I right? Go ahead, honorable member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, these oversized visits clearly demonstrate the urgent intervention required from government to support regional tourism, which typically will support small town economies around the country. Now, the reality of this, Mr. Chair, is that it impacts on the ability of such places to generate much needed revenue and economic opportunities for those communities. Now, this clear evidence shows that the department is either being flippant with the truth regarding the state of domestic tourism or is unaware of the true situation. Now, the DA submits that both possibilities are untenable, and therefore we recommend that the department start fulfilling its mandate. Now, Mr. Chair, entrepreneurship can also become tourismpreneurship with the help of an engaged government. Millions of South Africans live below the poverty line, and therefore, Mr. Chair, the key focus of the Department of Tourism must include programs that will address the current discourse between tourism and poverty alleviation. And because the mere fact that tourism takes place does not imply that the money trickles down to the poor, we need real measures that will ensure that tourism does reduce poverty in our country. Now, Mr. Chair, following the budget announcement last week of the additional funding for tourism, we submit that the allocation should be utilized for the establishment of tourism infrastructure and the development of products that will drive demand and that will make business sense. Now, the lesson for government and the Department of Tourism is to make sure that the tourism landscape comprises of products and services that is market ready before spending millions of rands on further marketing programs. Now, having said this, the DA believes that every town and every community throughout our country has tourism potential, and therefore this additional funding must be allocated towards programs that will develop skills, knowledge, and business opportunities while developing tourism products and infrastructure that will specifically address the limited geographic spread throughout our country. Now, Mr. Chair, before I conclude, allow me to express my disappointment in the Home Affairs Ministers for not dealing decisively with the immigration fiasco at the Oliver Tambo International Airport. Now, earlier this week, we received reports of only up to 3 immigration officials present at counters, and this comes after the Minister has announced with much fanfare that an additional 25 million rand would be allocated to the appointment of an additional 58 immigration officials. Now, since last year, Mr. Chair, more than 800 passengers missed their connection flights as a result of the constraint at these counters. This is simply unacceptable, considering that our airports are major points of entry, displaying the capability of our country as a destination of choice for travel and trade. Now, without any further delay, more should be done to prepare our immigration officers for the influx of tourists to our country. In real terms, the industry has suffered a loss of 7.5 billion rand as a result of these disastrous travel regulations that was introduced 2 years ago. the Minister should cut his losses and do away with his ill-conceived regulations and implement international best practice measures such as electronic visas that will streamline tourism facilitation to our country. Thank you.
Honourable Member, EFF.
The economic freedom fighters did not participate in the oversight visits to both Mpumalanga and the Northwest. We do not do so because we refuse to go holidaying when we know the subject of the visit is something we know fully well. We have in the past registered our appreciation of the critical role tourism plays in growing the economy and its potential to mass job creation. It is currently unable to realize its full potential because of the nature and the structure of tourism industry itself. The industry operates like mafia, controlled by a few tourism players who have access to amenities such as hotels, bread and breakfast establishment, and recreational farms. They absorb the bulk of their revenue from tourism, appoint few black people as laborers, and pay them peanuts. This is one of the reasons why the land question is so important. Without radically changing land ownership patterns, tourism will continue benefiting a tiny minority. In the Northwest, the top 10 attractions in the province are Sun City with 54.2%, Pilansberg National Park 42.1%, Madikwe Game Reserve 14.1%, Hartensboom Dam 13.2%, Hartensboom Dam and Snake Park 10.8%, Waterfall Mall 7.7%, Cradle of Humankind 7.5%, Clackstop Mall 4.4%, Brits Mall 4.4%, and Potchefstroom University 4.3%. With the exception of Madikwe, all these are unfortunately white-owned establishments. The province needs serious investment on new tourism sites. In Mpumalanga, instead of investing on new tourism sites, the provincial government has set aside money to the tune of 18 million to the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency to upgrade the tourism facilities at the Blade River Canyon, Menyelete and Song Imvelo Nature Reserve. This does not help diversity in the industry and perpetuates unequal distribution of tourism. We further note, of course, the idiocratic move by the ANC caucus in the province to erect Mr. Zuma's statue. We can tell you, putting Zuma as the statue will be a tourist detraction in the province, and we are advising you to stop doing it. And we reject this report because we know it is of no consequence to our people. Thank you.
Honourable Member, IFP.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Having read the both reports only a short while ago, I do this declaration on behalf of our Member of Tourism, the Honourable Nkosi Sebekulu. The promotion of domestic and international tourism in all our provinces is essential to our continued economic growth and development, and such is the responsibility of all spheres of government. Tourism is one of the key economic drivers and also play an important role in job creation. En ek moet aansluit met die agbare DA lid wat gesê het, ondanks teenkanting van sekere departemente, toerisme se bevoegdheid en die bevoegdheid van die minister van toerisme, meneer Derek Hannekom en sy departement, met een van die kleinste begrotings wat die meeste waarde toevoeg hierso. The recent oversight visit to the Northwest sought to provide frank assessments of the state of tourism in the province and to identify areas to be targeted for possible growth and development. The leadership and enthusiasm of the MEC for tourism in the province must be commended. A department without hands-on leadership is a department doomed to fail. Cultural tourism should be more greatly promoted. For instance, the Credo Mutwa village is a significant value to the area as a tourist destination. Dr. Credo Mutwa, as we all know, is a well-known in international, religious and philosophical cultural circles. In Mpumalanga is ons bekommerd oor die gebrek van staatsondersteuning en pelgrimsrus en die verval van die gebied. Daar is ten tye soveel vakante besighede en toerisme tot hierdie eens groot toerisme attraksie is heeltemal tot niet. Die staat deur middel van die departement toerisme het 'n plig om hierdie area weer eens te bemark en te bevorder. In conclusion and in respect of the issues that were identified by the Oversight Committee, the IFP agrees that through closer cooperation between the national, provincial tourism department, as well as the private sector stakeholders, many can be resolved, and we urge government to adopt such inclusive consultation going forward. The IFP supports that.
The next speaker is the Honourable Kubisa.
Thank you, House Chairperson, honorable members. Tourism remains one of our few national resources which has a large-scale potential to address the twin evils of poverty and unemployment in our country. Tourism currently employs or supports almost 712,000 direct jobs, which is one of only a few sectors of our economy where there is positive employment growth. However, tourism is a very competitive sector, and if government guidance, assistance, and planning is lacking in substance, then it will remain an avenue which is underexploited and underutilized. Mpumalanga is indeed breathtakingly beautiful, in particular the eastern part of the province, which is also the area most geared for tourism. Sadly, the failure of the government-sponsored tourism development project in the province is casting a dark cloud over the benefits of tourism for local communities. It was anticipated that the project discussed in the report would benefit and empower women and youth and act as a blueprint for inclusive future tourism development. However, the report clearly shows that these projects are in varying degrees of implosion. The once thriving Pilgrim's Rest, crown jewel among the tourist attractions in Mpumalanga, is now a stagnated reminder of how tourism development should not be approached by the government. In Northwest, we see that the province too is faced with inadequate, uncoordinated, and inconsistent and fragmented tourism planning. This is similar to the situation in Mpumalanga, and would venture to say the same is prevalent in other provinces too. This lack of coordination between the government department and the provincial government is something which will have to be addressed if we are to ensure the growth of tourism in our country. When we look at the recommendation contained in the report, it is evident that the department and the Mpumalanga and Northwest provincial governments are facing a huge challenge. These recommendations favor accountable, transparent, and efficient governance, whilst at the same time requires close cooperation between the department and the provincial government. Only time will tell if sufficient synergy can be mastered between them and meet these challenges. The National Freedom Party supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any further declarations? The Honourable Ngobo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. My declaration will cover both Mpumalanga and Northwest. Mpumalanga, there was quite a lot of problems with SRIs, that is legacy projects. But as we speak now, those legacy projects are being aggressively addressed because for Zitabiseni, there is already a turnaround strategy that the department has come up with to have a private sector to look into the issues of that area so that it becomes revamped and works with the communities around that area. This one, I think, will improve a lot of these legacy projects. When it comes to those legacy projects that are non-functional at all, the department has used GTEC, which is helping with the engineering and also taking out of the tourism books those projects that are not necessarily profitable for tourism, but some of them have been handed over to the municipalities. With Northwest, Northwest is primarily a rural province. They talk of small towns and dorpies, and that is where they are looking into. We were impressed that they've got homestays which are used by tourists, particularly around Plenary, where tourists stay at the people's homes and they live with the people, they do what the people do. If that could be replicated throughout the country, I'm sure it will also look into the area of rural tourism. The other experience that we saw in Mpumalanga, in Northwest, is very cultural, and a lot of areas can be developed into cultural heritage sites, which will actually attract a lot of tourists. In Plenary, which is a cultural village, there is also an indigenous knowledge system. We're at that particular oversight together with the Department of Science and Technology. They were looking into the indigenous traditional medicines, and we're looking into the cultural practices that were done in that area. That is one area that would really attract tourists to come to the Plenary and to visit the province. The other issue that was of interest is they've got hotel schools which are attracting students from all over the country, from Northwest, from Limpopo, even from the Eastern Cape. These students are trained, and some of them are actually working. And in the Mafikeng Hotel School, there is also support from the French people. The Taung Hotel School is training young people into hospitality as well as the scarce skills that are needed by the country. If this could be a success, it will be of big assistance to the country. However, we would like to put a recommendation to the ministers, the Minister of Tourism in particular, and the Minister of Transport. If the Minister of Tourism can communicate with the Minister of Transport to assist the tour operators from this province so that they're able to assist tourists that come from OR Tambo going to Northwest. And we would also ask the Minister of Tourism to have a meeting or a communication, or actually even the intergovernmental relations, where tourism, national tourism, provincial in Mpumalanga, as well as public works and local government in Mpumalanga should talk around the issue of Pilgrim's Rest, because there is a lot of potential of tourism growth if that area can be revamped and can be looked at and can be given the actual home of the role of the municipalities, what the municipality can play, what tourism can play, and what is the role of public works as the owner of Pilgrim's Rest. So we would really like the House to support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize the Honourable the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. I move that the reports be adopted by this House, and thank you.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to.
Speaker, please note the objection of the EFF.
Objection will be noted. Honourable members, we now order. Order, honourable members. We now come to motions without notice. Does any member of the ANC wish to give a motion of a notice? Motion without notice?
Honourable Chairperson, the African National Congress moves that without notice, that the House notes that...
Order, honourable members. Continue, honourable member.
that the House notes that the University of Johannesburg is set to rename the Persco building after anti-apartheid journalist Percy Qoboza and Agri Cluster today, Thursday, the 2nd of March 2017. Further notes that the building became the headquarters of the media giant Persco in 1976, the same year Qoboza was named a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University and when the Soweto uprising took place. Acknowledges that Qoboza and Cluster were at the forefront of black consciousness ideology, which they articulated through their contribution in newspapers. Recalls that they fought for the dignity and value of black people oppressed and dehumanized by apartheid regime, using the media as a mighty weapon. Understands that Qoboza became the editor of the World newspaper in 1968, and the paper would go on to be the most circulated black newspaper in South Africa by 1974. Further understands that Cluster became the editor of the Sowetan newspaper 1988 until 2002, and he is famously credited with having introduced the concept of nation building, which aimed to actively repair the damage apartheid inflicted on the nation as a whole, and commends the University of Johannesburg for acknowledging the role played by the journalists in the democratic South Africa. I so move.
Honorable members, all of you who are going to read these motions without notice, please keep in mind that there is a time limit on these motions without notice. It is 1.5 minutes. It is not until the end when you finish or intend finishing the motion. I now put the motion. If there are no objections, are there any objections? There's no objections, and the motion is thus agreed to. The DA? The DA, do you have a motion without notice?
We do indeed, Mr. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House express its condolences to the family of Sheila Henderson of Ladysmith, KwaZulu-Natal. Also express its gratitude for the contribution that Sheila made towards bringing about a democratic South Africa and for working tirelessly for its success. Notes that Sheila died peacefully in her sleep on Sunday, the 19th of February 2017, at the age of 94 years. Also notes that she was a founder member of the Black Sash movement in the 1950s, as well as being a founder member of the Progressive Party. Further notes that she was a friend of Helen Suzman and sadly turned down a request by Suzman to stand for election as a candidate for the Progressive Party. Sad because she would have made an outstanding MP at a time when Suzman was a lone voice in Parliament. Recalls that she remained active in politics right to the end. Even at the age of 93, confined to a wheelchair, she was greeting voters during last year's elections. Also recalls that she was a historian of note who ensured that history was viewed from all points of view. She, with a small band of committed people and with funds she squeezed from donors, established the now world-renowned Delana Museum in Dundee. Acknowledges that she inspired a whole generation of historians, including the recently retired Chief Archivist of South Africa. Conveys our profound condolences to the family and friends. Ambagahle Sheila, siyathemba ukuthi uNkulunkulu uzosiza ukuthi siphinde sikubona ezulwini.
Honorable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, the motion is agreed to. The EFF?
Thank you, House Chair. I rise on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters to move without notice that the House notes that the last prisoner of the Fees Must Fall movement, Bonginkosi Education Khanyile, was granted bail after a prolonged period of imprisonment. The EFF notes that his prolonged imprisonment was unjust, unfair, and directly infringed on his liberties. We further note that this struggle for the free higher education is just a beautiful and progressive struggle. Note that the Constitutional Court ruled yesterday that this decision to lower court to deny education Kanyile bail were irrational and ignorant of the fact that he was a human being entitled to human liberties. Further note that the Constitutional Court expressed concern that Kanyile was being detained without a trial date for a long period of time and questioned why he was only a student leader to remain behind bars despite protest action have come to an end. Acknowledge that Kanyile has been in detention for more than 6 months, and his only sin was to lead students in their struggle for free quality education. We applaud the Constitutional Court for being the touring steward of our constitutional democracy without fail, time and again. We wish Bonkosi Kanyile well for his future. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates the Stormers for beating the Bulls 37-24 at Newlands on Saturday, 25 February 2017. Note that the Stormers scored 5 tries to the Bulls 4 in their Super Rugby seasonal opener match. Believes that the Stormers had a strong tactical performance and dominated the Bulls at the scrums with strong attacking and defensive breakdowns, and wishes the Stormers more success in their upcoming matches. Thank you.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion.
House Chairperson, I'd love to object, but half my caucus agrees with it. So it's
Honourable members, the motion is thus agreed to. The IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the IFP, I hereby move without notice that the House notes that the legendary Inanda Seminary in Durban has teamed up with the Xenix Foundation to launch a pilot teacher interns project in 8 rural primary schools in KZN. Further notes that this is a maths, English, and science program which will see 12 teacher interns studying towards Bachelor of Education degrees through UNISA placed at schools around Ndwedwe. Acknowledges that the aim of this pilot project is to ascertain whether the already successful model of pre-service teacher training can work in a rural setting. Further acknowledges it is a vision of the program manager to train and grow inspired, high-quality teachers from disadvantaged backgrounds through hands-on and school-based professional development, thus raising the quality of teaching and learning in our schools. And finally, applauds the initiative taken by these organizations and encourages government, I'm looking at you across, to adopt more forward-thinking whilst working together with the citizenry in order to ensure a better future for our country. Thank you.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. The NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move on behalf of the NFP for the House to note that the Siloa Lutheran TP Hospital at Dlomodlomo near Kwanongoma is under threat of imminent closure when the funding agreement expires next month. And further note that the possible closure of the hospital will affect many people who depend on this hospital to get their medication and the services of medical staff. Also note that the management is presently working on a retrenchment plan for about 95 workers, which if implemented will hit low-income families particularly. Finally note that the Statistics South Africa has revealed that tuberculosis was the leading underlying natural cause of death in 2015-2016, accounting for 7.2% of all deaths nationally. Wherefore, we call upon this House to encourage the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health to make every effort possible to ensure that the doors of this crucial medical facility remains open to serve the disparate need of the Northern Zululand region. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. There's no objections, and the motion is thus agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The ANC moved without notice a motion congratulating SARS for intercepting 30 million rands worth of meth congratulates SARS for intercepting 100 kilograms of crystal meth worth about 30 million at OR Tambo International Airport. Notes that the cargo came from Cameroon via Istanbul in Turkey. Further notes that the substance meth is referred to as tick in the Western Cape and is one of the most commonly abused drugs in Cape Town. Acknowledges that meth is highly addictive, with addicts becoming aggressive and psychotic, and commends SARS for a job well done in assisting by intercepting this drug and in ensuring our sustained effort to keep all drugs off our streets and help keep our communities safe. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, and the motion is thus agreed to. The UDM.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move without notice on behalf of United Democratic Movement that the House notes with sadness that on Monday and Tuesday, 27th and 28th February, respectively, about 70 young people from Mangam Junior Secondary School in Mkanduri rural area, they had to be rushed to Lutubeni Clinic and Zitulele Hospital after suffering from mass hysteria. Further notes that these young souls were reported to have complained of headache, stomachache, and dizziness, a situation that could not be explained nor controlled by the school authorities. Recalls that the incident at Mangam comes less than 2 weeks after a pupil died at Begisizwe Junior Secondary School, and dozens others were rushed to hospital after they fell victim of a similar sickness. Commend the decision and leadership of the school and the parents to allow pupils not to attend school on Wednesday, which was 1st of March yesterday, in the interest of safety of all the children. Further commend the arrangements made by the school and parents to mobilize the broader community and religious fraternity for a prayer service as they all accompany the pupils back to school today, which is Thursday, March 2nd. Calls for a maximum unity of all sectors of the affected community in an endeavor to bring an end to this cruel incident. Wish all the affected pupils who were rushed to various health facilities for a speedy recovery and return to peaceful teaching and learning environment, and express our condolences with the family and the school of the 15-year-old grade 8 pupil who died 2 weeks ago. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. There's no objections, and the motion is agreed to. Freedom Front Plus, the DA.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the DA that this House, 1, notes that on Saturday the 25th of February, a 5-year-old boy, Richard Mkhlala, fell down an open, unprotected and abandoned 1 kilometre deep mine shaft near his home in the impoverished informal settlement named, with dark irony, Jerusalem in Boksburg, Ekurhuleni. Also notes that to date he has not been found. His parents are distraught. His community has marched in a violent protest to demand his rescue. Further notes that the Jerusalem informal settlement is one of no fewer than 119 informal settlements in ANC-run Ekurhuleni and is, like the others, a blighted and neglected place, built on unstable foundations with no prospect of remedy in a bleak post-industrial landscape, which is littered with open and abandoned mine shafts, down which, it is alleged, bodies are frequently thrown. Acknowledges that Richard's case highlights the need for local and national government to urgently address the rehabilitation of open and abandoned mine shafts, and to ensure that the interests of communities wherein mining activities occur are better protected. Calls for the continuation of the search for Richard, the closure and protection of all mine shafts, and the provision of alternative housing for Jerusalem and all the 119 informal settlements in Ekurhuleni. Conveys our heartfelt sympathy and support to the Mkhlala family and the community of Jerusalem. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, and the motion is agreed to. The EFF.
I rise on behalf of the EFF that the House notes that the struggle for the insourcing of workers from labour brokers and service providers is not yet achieved. Further notes that the fees must fall movement which amongst many demands call for the insourcing of university workers from labor brokers, acknowledges that it's discouraging to note that workers here in the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa are still subjected to a slavery system of labor brokering by unscrupulous labor service providers, parading as service providers. Further acknowledges that about 42 workers in the cleaning division, with the majority of them being females, are employed by a service provider and get paid a gross salary of less than 3,000 per month. After deduction, these poor workers go home with about 1,300 as a net salary. Further notes that the longest serving worker has been working here for 9 years, and the most recently employed has been employed for at least 18 months. This is a violation of workers' dignity. We call on Parliament to lead by example in the protection of workers' rights and to respect and protect workers' rights. We further note that Nehau has abandoned their cases because some of those shop stewards, whilst they are discussing the plight of those workers, they are also submitting their CVs. I so move. Thank you.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agreed to.
We are objecting, House Chairperson.
The objection is noted. Honourable members, the whips must please follow the proceedings and object at the appropriate time. The motion is not agreed to. The ANC.
The ANC moves without notice that the House welcomes the appointment of Siya Kolisi as the new Stormers captain. Recalls that he was included in the Springboks squad when he turned 21 in 2012. Further recalls that Siya earned his first Springbok cap in 2013 as a substitute for Arno Botha in a match against Scotland in Nelspruit. Remembers that he played extremely well and he was chosen as the man of the match in that game. Further remembers that Mr. Kolisi has already amassed 76 Stormers caps. Believes that his appointment proves that the team has absolute trust and confidence in his leadership as well as his abilities, and wishes Siya Kolisi much success in his future endeavors. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
The EFF object.
There's an objection and the motion is not agreed to. Cope. The ACDP. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The ANC moves without notice a motion on the Zero Discrimination Day. Knows that on the 1st of March 2017, the date has been declared Zero Discrimination Day. Further knows that this day is a UNAIDS campaign day for solidarity against racism, discrimination at work, discrimination at school, and other activities that reduce people's ability to participate fully and meaningfully in society. Believes that discrimination undermines the effort to achieve a more just and equitable world and causes pain and suffering for many, and calls for South Africans to unite and fight discrimination that divides the nation in order to create a world free of stereotypes that are a hindrance to development of the people of South Africa and promote ill-informed opinions. I so move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion.
I object.
There's an objection and the motion is not agreed to. The AIC. Agang. Order, honourable members. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chairperson.
Order, honourable members. Order, honourable members.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the selection of Pendulani Buthelezi and Sanele Nohamba, who are learners at Durban High School, to play for the Saru 7 Schools Under-18 team in Windhoek, Namibia, at the weekend of 4th to 5th March 2017. Notes that the two talented rugby players are the first to be selected amongst the school rugby players for the SARU 7 schools under 18 squad. Further notes that they are not only representing their school, but are also exclusively representing KwaZulu-Natal, as there are only two players selected from the province among all other rugby playing schools. Recalls that the two players are initially selected at the 7th rugby tournament at DHS last year, where they were invited to attend a training camp along with 18 other players from around the country. Recognizes that because of their talent at the training camp, they were selected for the recent announced 13-man squad, and wishes them much success in their match in Windhoek, Namibia over the coming weekend. I thank you.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, agree to. The APC, the PAC, DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that Kenilworth Secondary School in Kenilworth in the south of Johannesburg has obtained a 100% pass rate in 2016, with 80% bachelor's and 20% diploma pass, making it the best performing school in the district for the second consecutive year. Notes that this school, with a learner population of 100% black learners from poor communities, has produced these excellent results because there's a great partnership with parents and a school governing body led by the vibrant and passionate school principal, Mr. Morgan Radebe. Notes that the teachers are dedicated and passionate and do more than what is expected of them by giving up their weekends and holidays to ensure that the matrics excel and do not allow unions to interfere with their teaching. Further notes that Kenilworth Secondary School is an example to all other schools, particularly in poor communities, where such schools enjoy no extra luxuries and facilities. Acknowledges and congratulates the dedicated teachers, parents of the learners of Kenilworth Primary School, as well as the principal of the school. I move.
Honourable members, if there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, the motion is agreed to. The ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The ANC moves without notice a motion congratulating Tajana Skumaker for achieving a World Championship qualifying time in the 200-meter breaststroke. Congratulates Tajana Schoonmaker for achieving a World Championship qualifying time in the 200 meters breaststroke on the 25th of February 2017 at the Swimming SA Grand Prix in Stellenbosch. Knows that her achievement is the second fastest time for the women's 200-meter breaststroke in the world this year. Further knows that she also made a clean sweep of the breaststroke event over the weekend in the 50-meter, 100-meter, and 200-meter distances. Believes that this 19-year-old rising star's great swimming abilities will bring glory to South Africa and wishes her success in future endeavors. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections, the motion is agreed to. Honourable members, that concludes motions without notice.
Honourable Chair.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Just on a point of order, Honourable Chair, if you may. Our rules on the motions without notice. First, they say that the notices must come in at a particular time, go to the office of the Secretary, and the Secretary will then alert all parties, so that if there are 5 parties that disagree with the motion, then such motion will not come to the House. Now, I'm raising this, Chair, so that perhaps you can look whether the motions without notice that have been objected to, including the EFF one, oh, Lalelim, including the EFF one, whether including the ANC ones, whether all of them went through all these processes, and whether parties informed by our rules did indeed object in terms of the rules to these motions. If such a process wasn't followed, I will respectfully request Honorable House Chair, so that we don't go back to where we come from, that you reconsider and correctly the rulings that you have correctly made in relation to the motions without notice that were rejected today. That's all that I'm asking, Chair, that you just go back there, look at the process, whether all these processes were followed and whether parties followed what is contained in our rules, so that we don't go back to that terrible animosity that would characterize motions without notice in this House. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. Now, Honourable Chief Whip will do that. We'll get the report from the table staff and we'll have it ready for this further discussion in the Chief Whip's forum, which you happen to chair as well. The next item on the order paper is member statements. Honourable Steenhuisen.
House Chairperson, can I address you in terms of Rule 1325 of the Rules of the National Assembly?
Yes, you may.
House Chairperson, Section 92 of the Constitution says that members of the executive are accountable to this House for the exercise of their authority. The oversight and accountability model adopted by this Parliament in Section 3 recognises members' statements as one of the mechanisms to hold the executive accountable. Today we're now in the situation we've got two ministers in the House, and I really think it's making a mockery of this tool of oversight. I mean, even if they wanted to, they couldn't respond to the 6 statements because they just don't have enough members here. The Leader of Government Business undertook to the presiding officers that this situation would improve. It's got worse. And could I press upon the presiding officers to please take this up again with the Leader of Government Business? We need the executive in this House accounting to members as per the Constitution and our own oversight and accountability model. Thank you.
No, thank you, Honourable Steenhuisen. No, the matter is a concern. I've just quickly checked. There's 2 ministers and 4 deputy ministers present. However, it is a matter that was previously raised in the House, and we will definitely take it up with the Leader of Government Business to ensure that we do deal with these statements and the replies thereto in accordance with the rules. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement?
Thank you, Chairperson. The ANC welcomes the recent Memorandum of Understanding on the entry and exit animal inspection and quarantine between South Africa and China, which will present an opportunity to smallholder farmers to access Chinese market. Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries Minister Senzeni Zokwana signed the memorandum and the protocol on the export of South African beef to China on Friday, the 24th February 2017, to give effect to the exports of South African beef to China. The minister signed the agreement with Chinese Vice Minister of General Administration of Quality Supervision, Inspection and Quarantine during the launch of the Operation Pakisa on Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development by President Jacob Zuma in Roodeplaat, Pretoria. President Zuma announced during the State of the Nation address on 9 February 2017 that South Africa would begin exporting beef to China this year. The agreement will further enhance and take forward the strong relations and strategic partnership between South Africa and China. The program aims to enhance and transform the agricultural sector as well as accelerate land reform to ensure an inclusive rural economy. Operation Pakisa on agriculture, land reform and
Honourable
rural
Member,
development
your time is
also
now
seek to address
expired.
constraints. Thank you.
Thank you. The DA.
Thank you, House Chair. Yesterday marked the 1-month countdown to the termination of the invalid, irregular CPS-SASSA contract to distribute 17 million social grants to poor and vulnerable South Africans. Since June last year, the DA has done all in its power to gain clarity and get answers from the Minister of Social Development and SASSA on their plans to institutionalize the payments of these crucial grants. We have asked questions, oral and written. We have written to the committee calling for the minister to be summoned to present her takeover plans. We have written letters calling for clarity, all to no avail. The minister and her department have shown nothing but obfuscation and evasion on this matter. She has disdainfully disregarded every conceivable parliamentary oversight mechanism, and still we have no plans before us. We are sitting on a ticking time bomb and playing with the lives of 17 million South Africans. Thank you.
The EFF.
The EFF welcomes the arrest of Councillor Koleki Lelange in the Eastern Cape. The Economic Freedom Fighters wishes to congratulate the Hawks in the Eastern Cape for a job well done. Last Thursday, the Hawks arrested the criminal mastermind of fraud and embezzlement of public money, Councillor Koleki Lelange, the current Speaker of Walter Sisulu Local Municipality, and an ANC leader in the Eastern Cape. This ANC leader was charged with fraud and financial embezzlement of about 7 million rands of public money. We call on the MEC for Kokta and the National Minister, the Weekend Special, Des van Rooyen, to get rid of Councillor Koleki Lelange with immediate effect. We also call on the law enforcement agencies to pursue all criminals without fear or favor, irrespective of their political backgrounds. And we all call on our courts to impose the harshest possible sentences to the thieves of public money, such as this ANC cadre, Mr. Councillor Lange.
The IFP. My apologies. The ANC. Is there a statement from the ANC?
Thank you, House Chair. The official handover of the clinic at Mbalenhle Township, Secunda. The Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 25th February 2017 opened a state-of-the-art clinic at Mbalenhle Township in Secunda, Mpumalanga. The opening of that clinic was a source of joy and pride to the people of Mbalenhle and was a reflection of the ANC shared commitment to build a compassionate society in which all have access to quality health care. This was a demonstration of a nation's ability to bring social partnership together, to create a more humane and inclusive society. This project was done in partnership with Sasol as a value partner for social development. The company has embraced the vision of a united, just and equitable society. We therefore wish to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Sasol for being a trusted ally of our people in working to transform and improve the healthcare system that we inherited from a past of neglect and deprivation. We further wish to extend our appreciation to the clinic staff for their dedication to attend to the needs of our community under such difficult conditions before the state-of-the-art clinic was built. We thank the leadership of Sasol for such an investment amount to 9
Honourable
million
Member, your
rand.
time is now expired.
As we speak now, the Mbalenhle community.
The IFP.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The reality is that the people of our country are still faced with are very unfortunate and disheartening. Proper housing or the lack of therefore continue to be the bane of many of people living in South Africa. People have become victims of severe contraventions of their constitutional right to dignity, life and housing. Rights that are fundamental and that ought to be enjoyed by us, all equal as human beings. And yet every single day they worry about securing a home of their own, every single day of their lives. The dream of accessing housing is still a very distant reality to many people. The struggle for decent home is really, and corruption is rife. The corruption within the system is a huge problem. It has been left people living in limbo, not working, knowing whether they are coming or going. Waiting has become an intrinsic part of the native, why people remaining doing on Squara. The fact that it has been reported that they still have C forms people of 1996 and 1997 is disappointing and certainly sad. Perhaps another issue that needs to be highlighted in the issues of people with illegal occupation houses that are still assigned to them using intimidations and deceit. This is, I believe...
Honourable Member, your time has expired. The NFP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The looming SASSA crisis reminds us very much of a similar situation recently when South Africa was held hostage by load shedding, using a manufactured energy crisis as a means to enrich a few connected individuals through lucrative coal supply contracts. The damage suffered by business and investor confidence had cost us billions, and the daily lives of ordinary people were disrupted. Once again, we are on the verge of being held hostage, and this time it is our most vulnerable people in South Africa who will pay the price for enrichment of a few. The NFP believes that Minister of Social Development is instrumental in creating this new crisis, having done nothing over the past months to put in place plans to ensure that grants are distributed to 17 million of our people in the beginning of April. All the while, she continues to jealously guard her apparent links to those BE members who formed part of a Bellarmint's 10 billion bid for the tender, which was awarded to CPS under corrupt circumstances. The NFP supports suggestion that the National Treasury should be mandated to step into the looming void to ensure that grants payments are effected expeditiously. We believe that the government should not be allowed to outsource its responsibility.
Honourable Member, your time is now expired. The
Thank
ANC.
you.
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC...
Honourable Member, okay, you go ahead, but please take note the other member was on her feet as well. But continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you. The ANC has prioritized rapidly expanding access to and use of ICT infrastructure by ensuring that the government supports and develops free Wi-Fi areas in cities, towns and rural areas. The ANC commends the eThekwini municipality for practically implementing the ANC policy by launching 30 million free Wi-Fi services across eThekwini, including townships and rural areas. This project will be rolled out in phases, with the pilot phase including the laying out of fiber optic cable, with the city of eThekwini having rolled out over 1,500 kilometers of fiber optic cables thus far. The city of eThekwini expects to connect all public facilities and to provide the Wi-Fi in all municipal libraries, as well as the launch free Wi-Fi in a major township, rural areas and areas around the universities, or where there is a high concentration of students. Furthermore, it also plans to set up 750 Wi-Fi access points within the next 3 years. The ANC trusts that this project is going to benefit all, but mostly young people in the townships and rural areas, where access to digital technology is paramount. This project seeks to help young people search for
Honourable
jobs
Member,
online.
your time is now
I
expired.
thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. The ACDP.
House Chairperson, too many learners' rights to education and human dignity have been and continue to be violated as a result of substandard sanitation facilities. The ACDP is very concerned that even though government is aware that there is a massive backlog of schools that need proper toilets for learners, there seems to be no agency to correct the shortfall. In August 2015, an NGO called Blessment Ministries International approached the Limpopo Department of Education to offer their assistance to build these much-needed toilets in needy schools. After submitting all the required documents, an undertaking was made that a memorandum of understanding would be signed between the department and BMI. In order to get the MOU signed so that the project could commence, an appointment to meet the then acting head of department was requested. However, despite a number of attempts since, BMI are yet to be granted a meeting to finalize this agreement. BMI approached me to assist them. On the 6th of February this year, I requested an appointment with the Minister of Basic Education to raise this urgent matter, but to date, her office has not given an appointment. The ACDP urges government not to wait until another child falls into a filthy, disgusting pit latrine before they respond to offers to help from NGOs such as Blessman Ministries International. Chairperson, there are many people who want to help schools with this dire situation, but because of government red tape and an uncaring attitude, people who want to help are denied the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
The ANC, Honorable Dambuza.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Part of the ANC strategy on rural development is premised on growing sustainable rural enterprise and industries through strong rural-urban linkages, increased investment in rural industries, and access to local markets and financial services. Therefore, the ANC views this initiative by its provincial government as a step in the right direction to enable them to be participants in the agro-processing value chain. As a result, the farmers in the Eastern Cape are for the first time able to sell their super maize meal and sell at a retail supermarket in King Williamstown. Thus include a branded maize product produced by 6 Mkanduli farming cooperatives to the local retail sectors. This effort ensured the launch of the rural cooperatives from the Mkanduli Rural Enterprise Development Hub as commercial farms and food processors, benefiting from the land through government-funded initiatives. The ANC believes that the development of small businesses and cooperatives are critical means to empower our people, draw new entrants into the economy, strengthen inclusive growth, build the social economy, and communities should be encouraged to use the land to be productive. I thank you.
The DA.
House Chair, when medical equipment fails, people die. The Auditor General in its health sector report for 2015-2016 reported that the DRN Western Cape was the only province that consistently passed the following rigorous tests. First, ensuring that there was enough money for procuring and maintaining medical equipment throughout the year. Secondly, rigorously implementing approved standards for operating procedures for procurement and the maintenance of equipment. Third, ensuring that there were no delays in the process of procuring new equipment. And lastly, ensuring that medical equipment was used properly by having trained staff, appropriate infrastructure, routine maintenance, and instantaneous repair of broken machines. Chair, the Northern Cape and Limpopo failed 4 out of the AG's categories. KZN, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and the Eastern Cape failed 5 out of the 6 categories. The Free State and the Northwest failed every single one of these categories. By any standard, these are shockingly poor performances, except for the Western Cape, where the Auditor General found that medical equipment consistently passed in every one of these categories. All provinces are welcome to come and look at how the Western Cape does it. I thank you.
The EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. The EFF pledges solidarity with a Tole family whose 5-year-old son has been trapped in an abandoned mine since the 25th of February 2017. 5-year-old Richard Tole has since not been found at the Boxbeck's disused mine to date. Rescue operations have been temporarily suspended, and the rescuers have alerted the family that chances of Richard being found alive are minimal. The blame must be put squarely at the feet of mining companies whom, after exploiting our mineral and labor resources, leave open holes that now serve as graves swallowing our people alive.
It must be the duty of the government of the day to prioritize the safety of our people and to prevent such avoidable tragedies. There are thousands of disused mines in this country, left without proper mine closures procedures, and the department has not done anything to hold these mining companies accountable. We call on a full government project to attend to all abandoned and disused mines, to ensure safety measures are put in place and that the responsible mining companies face the full might of the law, including compensation to communities and affected families. We call on all the people of South Africa to join in prayer and solidarity with the Tole family in the hope to find their 5-year-old son. Our unity in times of human tragedy is utmost importance. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC has undertaken a commitment to make it compulsory that all public buildings is accessible to people with disabilities. In line with this commitment, the ANC government has invested about 175 million to ensure that students and staff with disabilities have improved access to university facilities. This multi-million rand project follows the ANC government's strategic decision 3 years ago to support all universities with funding to improve or expand facilities and infrastructure for students and staff with disabilities. Some of the upgrades at the country's universities include improvement to areas such as lifts and walkways, general accessibility, assistive learning hardware, magnification of printed text, enhancement software, low vision aids, braille embossers, computer software, hardware, and accessories. Furthermore, the ANC is pleased that the government has finalized the process of its disability policy, which will help guide the post-school education and training sector on how best to harness the skills of the disabled. The ANC will continue to implement policies and programs that are geared towards the protection and promotion of the rights of the people with disabilities to ensure uninhibited and open access to all facilities for students and staff with disabilities. I thank you.
Thank you. AIC. Not here. ANC, Honorable Dirk.
The ANC is proud to showcase one of its many success stories amongst its restitution program. As evident, yes indeed. After KwaZulu-Natal, ANC government together with the Commission for Restitution of Land Rights officially handed over title deeds worth 140 million rand to the residents of Nkanini Kwabe in Stenga. This community was dispossessed of their land rights in 1971. Currently, this community of Nkanini Kwabe is able to participate in the agricultural economy, as the provincial government also launched the Kwabe Nkanini sugarcane project, which has received about 16 million in funding for management and infrastructure development. Further, this enterprise grows sugarcane, bananas, nuts, lychees, and flowers. The Nkanini farming project employs 75 people, with the expectation that as the project develops, more than 117 jobs will be created. Furthermore, the Kwaba Secondary Cooperative has a total of 992 beneficiaries, with 349 people employed by the cooperative, with an expectation of 87 additional jobs to be created. The ANC believes...
Thank you very much. Your time is
Thank you very much.
DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. The difference that a DA government makes was on full display for South Africa to see last week. In comparison to the 11 million rand spent on the State of the Nation and the obscene security designed to exclude the public, the Western Cape State of the Province address was an example of a government that knows it serves the people, not the other way around. The DA is showing what is possible when South Africans vote for a party that actually delivers a better life for all, not just talks about it. Consider the evidence. Unemployment in the DA-governed Western Cape is a full 13.8 percentage points lower than the national average, and rural unemployment is 14% lower than the national average. 75% of South Africa's venture capital deals are done in the DA-governed Western Cape. International tourist arrivals are up 16% in the last year. The DA has halved the backlog in issuing title deeds, making people owners of their own properties and giving people meaningful land reform. Employment in farming and agri-processing has increased 40% in just 2 years. This is what happens where the DA governs. It's what will happen in Johannesburg and in Tshwane and in Nelson Mandela Bay too. And it is a sad day when the ANC in Johannesburg blocks the opening of a brand new clinic designed to better serve the community of Alexandra.
Thank you very much. Your time
Like they
has
did on
expired.
Tuesday morning.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, House Chair. The ANC commends the initiative of the National Planning Commission to host various dialogue sessions with small, medium, and micro enterprises throughout the country from March to May. The ANC believes that this will have a tremendous impact on developing and strengthening small, medium, and micro enterprises as a vehicle to empower our people, draw new entrants into the economy, strengthen inclusive growth, and create large number of jobs. Moreover, the ANC is of the view that the dialogue sessions are also going to play a vital role in information gathering on the limited success of entrepreneurial activity by locals in township and rural areas. And therefore, its findings will assist in the gaining of deeper insight into the context and challenges faced by township and rural economies. Furthermore, the dialogue sessions will also assist in giving direction in the formulation of strategies to deal with the challenges faced by township and rural SMMEs, open up opportunities for black-owned firms and smaller businesses, thereby promoting inclusive growth, redress screwed ownership patterns in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the member statements. Are there any ministerial responses?
Chairperson,
Yes.
may I rise on 135-2,
135
which was raised earlier in support of the Honourable Chief Whip of the Opposition, and I want the Honourable Chief Whip to take note. Madam Chair, may I proceed?
135?
2, members of the Executive to answer questions.
It's 132, it's not 1.
I mean, sorry, 132, 132.5. I got it confused.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Chairperson, may I proceed? I've noted the contents of the 15 statements that were made from both sides of the House. Only 2 relate to ministers, one to a deputy minister and one to the National Minister of Rural Development. The rest, none of the ministers are here. Now, Madam Chair, I think it's important that the leader of government business is informed so that we just don't go through the motions and waste an entire hour sitting here, particularly on a Thursday afternoon, going through these statements. Thank you.
Thank you. The message will be conveyed to the relevant office, and I believe something will be done about that. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I heard Honorable Surje.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the Honorable Meshwe is correct in that schools without water or sanitation are indeed a violation of the dignity of our learners and educators. Whilst we've made significant strides in terms of the provision of water and sanitation in schools, I do believe that any cooperation and collaboration with the private sector is most welcome. I would invite the Honorable Meshwe to bring or provide me with the details of his request, and I shall certainly raise that with the Honorable Minister. It's important to know that in the 1914, 1915 years, just through the ACD programs, we were able to develop or deliver 59 state-of-the-art schools. In the year thereafter, 51 state-of-the-art schools. That is on average more than a school per week. In this financial year, the provinces and the National Department were able to deliver more than 110 schools as replacement or new schools. So we are making strides, but the challenges are huge and enormous, and therefore we certainly would welcome any contribution from the private sector, and if indeed we have to facilitate it, we certainly would take the responsibility. So I again invite the Honourable Minister to just, Honourable Meshwe, who might be a minister in the future, but is a minister in terms of his religious standing, to certainly provide me with the information. And may I conclude with reaching out to the 5-year-old, the family of the 5-year-old and the community out there. We certainly empathize with them, and we have learned that the defense or the army would be there to assist in this particular endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the only hand. Honorable Minister Nkwinti, I apologize, I didn't see your hand earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we want to thank the honorable members of the ANC who raised the matter about the beef export to China, and so on, and Honorable Dambuza about the enterprises in rural areas. I wish to just state here, Honorable Chair, last week we had 2 days consultative and workshop with districts, all of them, because we have appointed all the district mayors, irrespective of political parties. Districts, mayors of the Democratic Party, Democratic Alliance, and all of other districts were part of that. We have appointed them to be political champions of agri-parks. In the Western Cape, we go to Witzenberg. I'm sure the honorable members, if they visit there, they'll see a big transformation there. You will see that in Bushbuckridge, Dr. J.S. Moroka in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, everywhere. You go to Ngocha in the Eastern Cape. Those are big projects that will now be controlled between national department, district departments. Next weekend, we are meeting with all municipal mayors and traditional leaders, because we will appoint them to look at the one household, 1 hectare program, which is very powerful in terms of fighting inequality, unemployment, and poverty. 1 household, 2 dairy cows. We have started implementing that. It's a wonderful program again. Our people must own these things. We'll also deal with the question of one ward. We're dealing with that. 1 ward, 1 integrated community development center, because our people in deep rural areas don't have those facilities. That's what we are doing, and we'll continue doing that. It will take time, but we will succeed. Let me just comment that, Honorable Chair, that, you know, Honorable Chair, I have observed this. I think honorable members are going to fall into a trap of affirming corruption when they begin to think that when they read something in the media, it's true. And when they do that inadvertently, they will affirm corruption and corrupt officials when we fight against corruption in our departments. And they don't apply their minds. They just think it is true. Next week or next time when the report comes to this House, we have referred that report to the public protector and asked the public protector to do a lifestyle audit on me since 1994. It will come to this House. You will be disappointed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Honorable Deputy Minister Chabeta.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to respond to the statement by Honorable Member Kapa in terms of the dialogues that are going to be held from March to May, and hope that with the partnership of the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, we'll be able, I think, to get to the programs that will be able to help us, but also understanding from the dialogues what are the felt needs of those SMMEs and how can we assist them in terms of making sure that their SMMEs are sustainable and we are able to assist them in terms of the job creation. And indeed, this will be talking to the NDP as it states that the 11 million jobs that we must create by 2030, 90% of them will come from the small businesses. So I hope in that particular regard, then these dialogues are assisting us in terms of making sure that we can be able to see progress in terms of assisting township and the rural economies, because if you remember the 9-point plan, states exactly, and point 7 states exactly that we need to revitalize the township economy and make sure that the township economies, can be able to be strengthened and the rural areas. So exactly this is going to lead us up to that because we believe that this is the right direction. Thank you, Honorable Kappa. I think we'll be able to move and make sure that we can create a lot of entrepreneurs than job seekers. For those who don't know who am I, Elizabeth Tabete, Deputy Minister, Small Business, working with Minister Zulu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes ministerial responses. The last item on the order paper is notices of motion. Does any member of the ANC wish to move a notice of a motion?
Yeah.
Honorable member there.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the pitfalls of inclusive economic growth caused by corruption both in the public and private sectors.
Thank you. GA. GA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the Minister of Social Development's evasion of accountability by not being present at SCOPA meetings to provide answers as to how a social grants crisis will be averted. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters that in its next sitting the House debates the lack of planning to mitigate the impact that the severe and recurring drought has had on the agricultural sector across the country. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC. Honorable Dirk.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I move on behalf of the ANC that in the next sitting of the House debates the eradication of all forms of discrimination wherever they appear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. IFP.
Honorable Chairperson, on behalf of the Nkatha Freedom Party, I shall move at the next sitting of this House that the House debates the surge in the illegal slaughter of animals since last year, with thousands of hides found hidden in warehouses and backyards, and the increase of the sale of donkeys to aid such practices. I thank you.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move that at the next sitting, this House deliberates on the effects of the socio-economic impact on past and present farm workers and their families who were paid with alcohol, resulting in alcohol fetal syndrome affecting many generations, and the negative impact this has had on their lives, so that these affected families are compensated accordingly. I so move.
Thank you. ANC, Honorable Khosa. Honorable, yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates disciplinary measures to be taken against perpetrators of fake qualifications, including prosecuting and publicly naming and shaming those caught doing so.
Thank you. UDM.
Mhlali ngaphambili ndiphakama apha on behalf of United Democratic Movement sisithi le ndlu xa iphinda ihlala sixela izishukuxelo umba wokufeyila kwa-government to address socio-economic issues ezibangela ukuthi abantu bakuthi babe nolaka baphele bekrwempana bebetha nabantu bangaphandle. I so move.
Siyabulela. FF plus. Not here. GA.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates allegations of corruption at the South African Weather Service.
Thank you. EFF. Yes, Ma'am Kaula.
Ngokulandelayo ngithi angisukume ngaphansi kwe-EFF uthi ngokulandela ke ikhulume ngodaba lwasemaplazini lapha kweWorcester. Kunenkinga yabalimi abatshala ama-orange abangafuni ukuqasha abantu bala eSouth Africa abaqasha abantu bangaphandle ngenhloso yokubaxhaphaza ngenxa yemali. Ngiyabonga.
Siyathokoza ma. ANC Honorable Dambuza.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. I hereby move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting debates transforming the structure of the economy through industrialization. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Cope. Cope, not here. ACGP.
Thank you, Chair. The ACDP calls on this House to debate the need for greater oversight in improving conditions for old people and holding departments accountable in order to restore society's lost compassion and respect for the elderly and vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates consistent farm evictions and slave wages in South Africa. I thank you.
Sithokoze. AIC. Ahang SA. ANC. Yes.
Thanks, House Chair. Thanks, House Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates the meaning of radical economic transformation for women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you. APC? Not here. PAC? Not here. GA?
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates an Airports Company South Africa report by the Auditor General, which recommends that appropriate steps be implemented to prevent the continued irregular, wasteful and fruitless expenditure, and why these recommendations have been ignored to date. I thank you.
Thank you. ANC, that side.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates 100 years of Palestinian resistance and struggle for self-determination. I here move.
Sithokoze. That concludes the notices of motion and the business of the day. The House is adjourned. Thank you.